The GAU-8's growl was already in her bones before her thumb touched the trigger guard. Vengeful 2. Armor element just deployed smoke. APS active. You've got one run before they scatter. Say intentions. The JTAC's voice crackled in her headset. Hot, clipped, too calm for how ugly the range looked. Captain Elena Navarro, call sign Anvil, rode the A-10C through light chop, canopy thrumming, desert air a pale, glaring sheet around her. The heads-up display floated in green. The TGP showed a modern MBT export variant, the kind the brief said peer adjacent, not the rust buckets she'd trained on. This one lived, thought, protected itself. One pass, guns, she said, throat dry, oxygen mask tight. Negative, Anvil, came her flight lead. Viper 1. APS will eat a lazy run. Make it textbook. Textbook. As if the textbook had her heart rate. As if the textbook had to prove a woman could run guns on a modern armor target without getting her nose shot off. She rolled in anyway. Altitude unwound. The tank speared through its own smoke, turret slewing, an IR plume from a support vehicle twitching for her. RWR chirped. She nudged the pipper forward, riding the solution, every muscle remembering hours in the sim, every breath counting down the window before the APS could react. Sand smell, hot avionics, heated plastic, everything crowded the cockpit. Anvil, brake if you don't, she squeezed. The hog roared, ancient and furious, the kind of sound that rewrites battlefields. Tracers stitched toward the tank, bright in the haze. And in that fraction she knew. Either this was the run that shut people up for good, impossible, they'd said, or this was the run everyone would whisper about in the squadron bar. The tank flared. The APS bloomed like a hard white flower. Everything went white gold. 72 hours earlier, Davis-Monthan, AFB, Arizona. The briefing room was too cold for the desert outside. AC rattled, fluorescent lights buzzed, and Captain Elena Anvil Navarro sat straight-backed at the end of the table where the latecomers usually hid. She wasn't late. She'd just picked the chair where she could see everybody's hands. Lieutenant Cole Harker stood by the whiteboard, sleeves rolled, marker tapping on a printed range diagram. This week is armor-centric. We're validating the APS profile. That means no hero runs, no cowboy angles, and no one freelancing because they watched a Gulf War doc. You fly the brief. His eyes slid along the table, measuring, assigning weight. They paused on her for a beat longer than on the others. Elena kept her face neutral. Oxygen hose clip in her leg pocket, kneeboard squared, patch aligned. Nothing for him to pick at. He tapped the hardest lane. This is the modern package. Simulated export MBT, APS, partial camouflage, supporting vehicles. We want a first-pass neutralization to show the syllabus. Isn't fantasy. You'll have JTAC support, but they're stacked. Don't expect hand-holding. A chair scraped. Latin Parish, 2 seats away, leaned back. Sir, that lane would be better with someone who's been on NTTR recently. He didn't say someone who isn't her, but the air carried it. Harker didn't bite. I'll assign in a second. Elena felt the familiar surge, not anger, not quite, more like a gate clicking open. She remembered her last eval write-up. Highly competent, risk-averse in unvalidated profiles. Risk-averse. The way men said careful like it was a flaw. She spoke before Harker could. Sir, request assignment to APS lane. The room tilted, just a fraction. Pen stopped. Somebody coughed. Harker's brows flicked. You haven't flown the APS variant outside sim. I've run the sim at 120% difficulty. She didn't raise her voice. My last 6 runs met ROE and TIOT. Parrish chuckled under his breath. Sims don't shoot back. Elena didn't look at him. That's why we validate, sir. Harker studied her, marker still in hand. She could almost hear the pages of her record in his head. Flight hours, pattern work, weapons employment, the mishap-free line she guarded like a secret. If he said no now, it would be to protect her, and that would live longer than any successful run. You understand the objective, he said. One pass preferred. PID, no collateral. If JTAC is unclear, you waive. His tone said, if you screw this up, it won't be the Sims' fault. Yes, sir. He looked around the room, daring someone to object. No one did. Fine. APS lane, Navarro, support, Parrish on secondary run. Parrish's jaw tightened. Copy. Elena wrote her name beside the lane on her notebook, hand steady. Inside, her pulse beat against her collar like it wanted out. This was the slot people avoided. Too many unknowns, too much video to be reviewed later by officers who weren't there. Harker capped the marker. Listen up, because I'm not repeating. Threat doctrine says these tanks can beat predictable approaches. So don't be predictable. But don't be cute either. We're proving an aircraft, not your imagination. You'll get intel in 2 hours. Simbay is open if you want it. If you want it. As if some of them wouldn't. As the group broke, Parrish leaned toward her desk. You know, if you biff this, the story's gonna be APS beat the hog, not it was a tough profile. She met his eyes. Then I won't biff it. He grinned, half respect, half test. You trying to save the A-10 anvil? No, she said, gathering her notes. Just trying to make sure people stop saying impossible when it's actually just hard. Outside, the Arizona heat slammed her, dry and blinding. On the ramp, the hogs sat under the sun like they had all the time in. The world? She knew better. Platforms age, funding shifts. But a clean, lethal run on the tape? That could outlive a whole airframe. She turned toward Sim, already walking. The simulator bay was dark enough that she could forget about Arizona. Black walls, low ceiling, fans humming, the faint plastic rubber smell of overused HOTAS grips. Capt Elena Anvil Navarro slid into the motionless cockpit shell and pulled the harness over her shoulder like it was the jet itself. The tech on the console, a civilian with headphones crooked on one ear, glanced at her name on the schedule. Navarro, APS lane? Yeah. Your evaluator said crank it to smart. Of course he did. Copy. Screens blinked to life. The forward display built a desert floor out of pixels. Low scrub, baked sand, hard horizon. Her HUD floated up, familiar, steadying. She settled her hands. Left on throttle, right on stick. Breathing leveled, 4 counts in, 4 out, the way she'd been doing since UPT. Scenario 1, the tech said. Single APS-equipped MBT, partial smoke, support vehicle with IR signature. JTAC will be delayed. You have to PID visually. APS response randomized. ROE? She asked. Same as brief. 1 pass preferred. Don't hose. So this wasn't just about hitting the tank. It was about not getting lazy with the gun. She rolled into the virtual ingress. Terrain crawled under her. Even in sim, she felt the old habit tugging. The legacy profile she could fly in her sleep. Clean roll-in, steady pipper walk, generous burst. Good enough on old T-72 mock-ups. Not on this. She forced the nose to a steeper line. Altitude ticked down. The target box formed. Heat plume, turret east, a puff of smoke like the tank was exhaling. Her RWR in sim chirped as if the range had teeth. Somewhere in her side vision, the sim's JTAC began talk on, delayed, clipped, realistic annoyance. Vengeful too, Your target is the lead armor in the visual lead armor, she said before he finished. She wanted the audio in debrief to show confidence. She rode the Pipper to the tank. The APS bloom triggered, a sudden white flower across the target. She squeezed the trigger for a classic long burst anyway. On the console, the tech made a small sound. APS defeated 60% of inbound. Her teeth clenched. That run, in real life, would have been replayed in a classroom with people circling the moment she fired. Reset, she said. The world blinked back to IP. This time she pictured the intel slide, APS cycling, vulnerable in a narrow window after first engagement, especially against close, sharp, disciplined attacks. Sim wasn't going to tell her when that window opened. She had to arrive at it. She came in again, faster, steeper. She let the tank fire its little software trick first, watched the bloom, and instead of panic firing through it, she rode, passed, held a beat longer than was comfortable, then snapped the nose and gave it a wickedly short, 2-second burst. The gun rattled the Sim with that low, beloved growl. Hit, the tech said. APS partially saturated. Mobility kill. Not enough, she said. I need catastrophic. You need better timing, he said, not unkindly. She reset again. Run after run, the room telescoped down to stick, throttle, HUD. Sweat gathered under her flight suit despite the AC. She stopped thinking about proving anything and started counting breaths, counting APS cycles, making the Sim her range. On the 6th iteration, she trimmed a fraction earlier. On the 7th, she rolled with less rudder input. On the 8th, she fired inside the precise gap after the APS had spent itself. The result light on the console flipped greener than before. APS overwhelmed. Target neutralized. The tech read. That's the money run. She let out the breath she hadn't admitted she was holding. Not triumph. More like confirmation. The tactic could work, but only if flown exactly. No showboating, no late corrections. Which meant in the real jet, with heat shimmer, real radio, real evaluators, she had to be cleaner than this. Save that profile, she said. Name it Navarro APS. The tech huffed. Cocky. Documented, she corrected. So they can't say it was luck, he typed. Done. She unstrapped, shoulders tight, neck buzzing with concentration. No applause. No one was going to stick that run on a wall. In the hallway outside, 2 other pilots laughed about weekend plans. They didn't know she'd just proven the syllabus was flyable. Quiet fortitude, she thought, is flying the same hard thing until it's boring. She headed straight for intel. The squad room always smelled like stale coffee and sunburned flight suits. Afternoon light slanted through the narrow windows, turning dust into thin, drifting columns. Captain Elena Anvil Navarro dropped her kneeboard on the table, meaning to update her notes from intel, and caught the tail end of a conversation that died a little too fast when she walked in. Parrish was there, boots up on a chair he hadn't earned, flipping through a range card. 2 younger pilots, Wolf and Danner, hovered nearby, pretending to check weather. The wall TV was muted on some base channel. Everyone looked busy. No one was. Parrish said, in that casual way people used when they wanted something to spread, I'm just saying, APS lane is what they give you when they want to see you flail on camera. Wolf smirked. We've all seen that Iraq clip. Guy rolls in, APS blooms, nothing happens, whole room laughs. Exactly. Parrish pointed the range card at him. Career killer. You do everything right. Tank still looks alive. Then the debrief is 40 minutes of, why didn't you? He must have known she was there. He kept going anyway. Elena pulled out a chair, sat, opened her notebook like she hadn't heard. Her heart rate didn't spike. She'd already burned that out in the sim, but the small muscles in her jaw tightened. Danner glanced at her. "You're still on APS, ma'am?" "Yes." Parrish dropped his boots, all concerned now. "Look, Anvil, nobody's gonna judge you if you take a standard armor lane. Harker stacked yours. You know he did." "Did he?" she asked, still writing. "Or did he just assign the lane that proves the syllabus?" "That's the PR answer." Parrish leaned forward, elbows on knees. "The real answer is, if it goes sideways, they can say, well, we tried, and still brief the regular runs. Meanwhile, your name is the one in the video." "That's fine," she said. He blinked. "You want your face on a maybe kill?" She met his eyes now, finally. "I want the lane." Wolf whistled under his breath. "She's serious." "Yeah, she's serious," Parrish said, but his tone shifted, needling. "But are you being smart?" He waved the range card. "Take mine. I'll swap. You run legacy armor, I'll take APS. Everyone wins." What he meant was, I win. You stop being the female who tried to prove too much. Elena considered making a joke, letting it pass. That was the easy way. Humor it, diffuse it, walk away. But jokes had long echoes. People remembered you laughed and assumed you agreed. She put her pen down. "I asked for APS lane. I'm flying APS lane." Parrish's brows lifted. "You asked for it?" "Correct." "That's ambitious." The word hung there. Ambitious. For a woman, in an old jet. She kept her voice even. "It's not ambitious. It's training. We're either validating a profile or we're not." Wolf tried to soften it. "He's just saying, ma'am, Harker's a hard grader." "He grades the tape," she said. "Not my chromosomes." That landed. The room quieted. Outside, an A-10 taxied past, engines humming through the walls, low and comforting. Elena let the sound fill the silence, made it clear she wasn't embarrassed. Parrish rocked back. "I mean, hey, no shade. I just don't like handing people ammo." "You mean like Navarro couldn't make APS work?" she said. He laughed. "Exactly." "Then don't hand it to them," she said. "I won't." It was a small thing, a squad room conversation, no brass present. But she felt the moment lock. She had refused the off-ramp, which meant, going forward, any mention of the APS lane would include her name. No more plausible deniability. No more, "oh, she got stuck with it." Danner cleared his throat. "Heard you were in sim, ma'am." "Yeah." "How bad is it?" "It's flyable," she said. "That's not what I asked." She allowed herself the smallest, driest smile. "It punishes lazy flying." Wolf groaned. "So, all of us." Light laughter. Tension bled, but not all the way. They understood now. She wasn't giving up the hard thing, which meant they had to decide whether to root for her or wait for her to miss. As they drifted back to their lockers, Parrish muttered, "Just don't make the rest of us look slow." "Then keep up," she said, already turning back to her notes. Quiet fortitude wasn't always in the cockpit. Sometimes it was in a room that smelled like old coffee telling a peer no. The intel room was windowless, humming with old air and newer machines. A projector threw a washed-out desert onto the screen, the kind of terrain she'd been flying in sim all morning. Captain Elena Anvil Navarro took a front seat, laid her kneeboard flat, pen uncapped. If there was one place she refused to miss a detail, it was here. The intel officer, First Lieutenant Keating, had the clipped manner of someone who'd briefed too many pilots who thought they already knew. "Threat package for APS lane," he said, clicking to the next slide. "Simulated MBT, export variant, near peer. Composite armor, thermal masking attempts, and active protection. You will treat it as if it's connected to a larger formation, even if you only see the single vehicle. He clicked again. A diagram of the tank, side view, with red rings for detection arcs. APS sat like small shield emitters around the turret. This is not the early-gen APS some of you saw at Nellis. This one has faster response, better discrimination. It's designed to defeat repeatable approaches. Repeatable approaches. Elena wrote it down even though she didn't need to. That was Harker's favorite word. Predictable. Today, Intel had just confirmed it. Keating pointed at the upper right corner of the slide. APS priority, high velocity inbound, especially at predictable bearings. It will also throw smoke, so your PID window will shrink. You will have a JTAC. He's busy. Assume his talk-on is not going to be spoon-fed. Someone in the back said, "So, why are we sending a hog instead of, something that lobs from 15 miles out?" Keating didn't even look irritated. Because this eval is about close air support against modern ground threats, not long-range standoff. Command wants to know if the A-10 can still do what it's famous for, under 2025 conditions. Eyes drifted. Elena could almost hear it. Can the old gunship still play? This was the part where some pilots quietly decided to do the minimum. She didn't get that luxury. ROE, Keating said, and the room straightened. Positive ID, no shoot-through unknowns. Your target will be in proximity to soft-skin trucks. You may not walk a long burst that risks frags into those trucks. Expect JTAC to call one pass. Assess. You will read back restrictions. If target is obscured, you wave. The last line snagged her. If target is obscured, you wave. In Sim, she'd powered through the bloom because no one would actually die. On range, with real steel coming out of her jet, she might have to choose between obeying that line and getting the footage the syllabus needed. Keating went on. Tank will attempt to reposition after first engagement. That's deliberate. We want to see how you react to a mobile, protected threat. Do not assume a stationary target. Elena wrote mobile after first hit, need decisive first pass. Keating looked over the room. Questions? She raised her hand. APS cycle timing. Is it fixed? He smiled faintly. Variable, that's the point. So no cheap timing tricks. She'd have to force the opening, with angle, speed, ungenerous burst. Beside her, Parrish muttered, "Told you. Career killer." She ignored him. Instead, she let the briefing reassemble itself in her head. ROE tight, JTAC rushed, APS smart, target mobile, collateral nearby. All of those were the reasons not to send her jet. All of those were the reasons this run mattered. Because if she pulled it off clean, the tape wouldn't just say Navarro did it. It would say this airframe flown precisely, can. That traveled farther. That got slotted into training packages and PowerPoints briefed to people who never set foot in this room. That, she decided, was her actual mission. Not to impress Harker. Not to shut Parrish up. To put one undeniable piece of evidence on the record before somebody up the chain finally said, "Retire the hog." Keating clicked to a final slide. JTAC location, friendlies to the south, a village mock-up to the east. You may not spray toward the village. Even in training, we don't train bad habits. She underlined it. ROE was not the enemy. ROE was the frame she could prove within. As they filed out, Harker appeared in the doorway, thumbs hooked in his belt. "Navarro." She stopped. "Sir." "You heard it. This isn't a hero video." "Yes, sir." "It's a syllabus validation. Fly the brief." "I will." He studied her. That evaluator's gaze weighing intent, not just skill. If it gets messy, you wave. She met his eyes. If I can see, I'll finish. A pause. Then he nodded once. Slow. Not approval. Acknowledgement. She'd just made her run about something bigger, which meant backing out later would look worse. When he left, she exhaled into the quiet corridor. No applause. No one saw the decision. But the mission had changed shape. The range lay west of base, a sunburned stretch of brown and ochre, cut by dirt roads and target hulks. From the A-10's cockpit, Captain Elena Anvil Navarro watched the heat shimmer crawl off the sand like silent waves. This was what the sim hadn't given her, the way the air itself lied to your eyes. Range control, Vengeful 2 in the block. Request dry run on APS lane, she called, voice level. Vengeful 2, cleared dry, APS lane hot, report off. Cleared dry APS lane, she echoed. She was alone on this one, no ordnance, just profile. That meant no one would be impressed when she got it right. It also meant any mistake would be purely hers, unblamed on weapons. She rolled to heading, sun flaring on the canopy bow. Crosswind twitched the jet. She felt it through the seat, the way the hog's broad wings caught every breath of desert air. If she chased all of it, she'd snake in on the target line, and Harker, watching on the ground, would write, "Over controls in turbulence." She eased the nose, let the jet settle. Trust the attitude. Trust the numbers. Below, the mock target, a tank silhouette, not even painted angry, sat exactly where Intel had said it would. To the south, the line of friendlies. To the east, the village mock-up. She pictured Keating saying, "You may not spray toward the village." Her mind flicked to the sim profile. There, everything had been clean. No mirage, no glare, no chopped-up light. Here, the Pipper seemed to float, edges wobbly. This was where average pilots widened bursts to compensate. This was where APS would win. She took a breath. 4 in, 4 out. Vengeful 2, winds 220 at 14, gusting 18. Range control added, like an afterthought. Gusting. Perfect. She turned inbound. The desert rose up. She tracked the approach angle she'd picked with almost jealous care. Her left hand nudged throttle, right hand micro inputs. The hog responded with that patient, tractor-like steadiness. At 5,000, she could see the distortion was worse closer to the ground. Light bending over hot dirt. This is why you don't fly by feel. She pressed the sight picture she knew should be there over the sight picture her eyes said was there. The two didn't match. Good. That meant she was doing it on instruments. In the back of her head, Harker's voice. Don't be cute. Fly the brief. She wrote it down to her notional fire point and, because this was dry, just said, guns, 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 into the mask, timing the 2-second burst she drilled in sim. She even let the GAU-8 growl in her throat, the way some pilots hummed for rhythm. 2 seconds, not 3. Nobody to applaud that discipline but her. Then she pulled off, smooth, no abrupt yank that would make the tape look sloppy. Vengeful 2, good profile, came the dry controller. Watch your drift on final. Winds are pushing you east. Copy drift east, she said. East was village. East was no-go. East was debrief lectures. She reset for a second dry. This time she compensated earlier. A hair of crab, a tad more attention to ground track. The range slid under her exactly where she wanted it. The Pipper wandered less. She called the notional guns again, on time. When she pulled off, a truck down by the range tower flashed sunlight. Harker, watching. Vengeful 2, better, Range said. If that had been live, you'd have been inside ROE. Inside RO. Not perfect, not lethal, just inside. That was enough for now. She circled high, letting the engine hum clear her head. It was tempting to stay out, keep hammering dry runs until she could brag about the tape. But that wasn't what this week was. This week was about arriving at the live run sharp, not burned out. She keyed the radio. Range control, Vengeful 2, off dry, RTB. Vengeful 2, RTB approved. On the way home, the bass growing in the haze, she replayed the pass. Her first instinct, to muscle the sight picture until it looked right, had been wrong. The decision to trust the numbers instead. Irreversible. That would be the difference when a real APS bust into bloom and her eyes said stop. Quiet fortitude, she thought, is doing the run no one will ever post. The hangar swallowed heat. Inside, everything was shade and echo. Tool carts, ladder stands, the hulking shape of an A-10 under maintenance with panels open like gills. Captio Elena Anvil. Navarro found Maj Rios where she knew he'd be, leaning on a wing root, coveralls halfway unzipped, wiping his hands with a rag that would never be clean again. Rios had flown hogs longer than she'd been in uniform. He'd done the ugly deployments, the real chaos, the kind people still told stories about. If there was anyone whose word could tilt her, it was him. He looked up. Heard you stole the APS lane, she snorted. I volunteered. That's stealing, but politely. She stopped beside the jet, glanced up at the GAU-8's exposed belly. Even parked, it radiated purpose. I wanted the tape. He watched her a second too long. Or you wanted certain people to shut up. She said nothing, which was answer enough. Rios tossed the rag onto the cart. What do you need, Anvil? Reality check, she said. Intel's giving us smart APS. JTAC's gonna be busy. Range has crosswinds. I've got the sim timing, but... She tapped her temple. I don't want to fly sim habits into real air. He nodded, slow, the way old pilots did when they were playing out 3 different runs in their head. All right. You fly the brief. You go in clean. Tank throws bloom. You don't like your PID, you wave. That's the party line, she said. What would you do? I'd do 2 passes, he said without hesitation. First to piss it off, second to kill it. She blinked. That's not what Harker wants. Harker wants a training video, Rios said. I want you back with a usable jet. She folded her arms, flight suit rasping. 2 passes gives the tank time to move, gives Eval time to nitpick. Yeah, he said. But it also gives you time to confirm you're not about to frag the soft skins. Don't get target fixated because you want to be the poster girl for Hog Beats APS. There it was. Not mean, not dismissive, just protective. The kind of protective that sometimes came wrapped in I've seen pilots die for dumber things than pride. She bristled anyway. I don't want to be a poster girl. Could have fooled me. She lifted her chin. I want it on record the profile works. Rios sighed through his nose, looked past her to the hot rectangle of daylight at the hangar door. You know the problem with records? They don't show crosswinds. They don't show RWR chirps. They don't show when JTAC steps on his own transmission. You know what they do show? That you went in once, failed to kill, and then had to beg for a reattack. Then I won't fail to kill, she said, and she heard the tightness in her own voice. He caught it too. Careful. With what? With flying for them instead of flying the jet. That hit, because he wasn't wrong. Somewhere between Harker's stare, Parrish's jokes, and the silent accusation that she'd been risk-averse, she'd started building this pass like a speech, something that had to say something. She let that sting settle, didn't swat it away. Single-pass lethality is the point of the eval. Sure, Rios said. In a PowerPoint. Out there? He jerked his chin toward the range. Out there, the point is, don't die stupid. You want my advice, Anvil? You go in conservative. You show them you can manage APS. You come back. You get another shot. And then it becomes, she said quietly, the video where the female pilot had to go twice. Rios studied her for a long moment. The hangar was all hydraulic smell and distant clank. You think they're going to say that? I think they said I was risk-averse on the last eval because I waved off a bad talk-on, she said. I was right to wave. But it stuck. He grimaced. Yeah, that's Harker. So this time I don't give him that handle, she said. This time I show him it can be done in one. That's you making it harder than it already is, he said. That's me keeping it honest, she countered. If I fly the sim profile exactly, with the steeper line and the 2-second burst on the APS cycle, it works. In the sim. In the dry, she said. I did the range. It holds. Rios tilted his head, conceding that point. And if the APS pops later than you expect? If the smoke hides the PID? I wave, she said, though it cost her to say it. Good. He jabbed a finger at her. That right there. That's the part I care about. You can be brave on the run. You be smart on the wave. She nodded. He wiped his hands again, slower. I get it, you know, he said. You don't want anyone to say she played it safe. You want them to say she killed the hard target. I want them to stop saying impossible, she said. He smiled, small, tired. Then go kill their impossible. Just don't kill yourself with it. I won't. Then fly your one pass, he said at last. But don't come crying when debrief wants you to justify every millisecond. I don't cry, she said. Yeah, he said. That's what worries me. She laughed, short. Decision settled. No 2-pass safety, no padding the tape. She was going to fly the sharper, narrower, less forgiving profile. If she missed, it would be recorded forever. If she hit, it would be recorded forever. Quiet fortitude, she thought, is choosing the hard version even after someone you respect told you not to. The briefing cell was smaller than the main room. Closer walls, lower ceiling, maps tacked with pushpins instead of projected. The kind of room where decisions that never made it to PowerPoint quietly happened. Captain Elena Anvil Navarro laid out her kneeboard, flight card, and a printed sheet of sim logs she'd pulled right after the last run. She had come armed. Harker was already there, arms folded, leaning against the table like he had all the authority in the world. Parrish slipped in after her, expression studiously neutral. A JTAC liaison sat to the side, laptop open, looking like he wanted this over. All right, Harker said. APS lane. Let's walk it. Elena spoke before anyone could offer to help. Ingress from the west, 280 to 310 corridor to minimize sun glare. IP to target 35 seconds. Desired TOT, 143730 local. Harker squinted at the wall clock, then at her paper. That's tight. JTAC will still be in talk-on with the helo play. Yes, sir, she said. That's why I need that exact time. Or, he said, tapping the table, we slide 30 seconds. Give the JTAC air to breathe. 30 seconds. To anyone else, it was nothing. To her, it was a broken metronome. The attack no longer arriving at the moment she'd trained to hit the APS between its likely cycles. She felt a prickle at the back of her neck, the way she had in the first briefing when his eyes lingered. Sir, slide 30 and I lose the angle time pairing I built in sim, she said. I've rehearsed for 143730, at that light, with that wind. Parrish chuckled. She rehearsed the light. Elena ignored him. She reached for the sim sheet. This is the run. Steeper line, 2-second burst, APS engaged at second 5, spent by second 7. My fire was at second 6. That's because I hit the IP on time. Harker didn't take the paper. Sim is clean. Range isn't. Yes, sir. That's why I flew dry yesterday. She kept her tone steady, professional. Crosswind was 220 at 14, gusting 18. I compensated earlier. The timing still held. If I shift TOT, I'll change where the sun hits the target, and I risk shimmer right when I need to PID. The JTAC liaison finally spoke. For what it's worth, we can make 3730. We'll be tight, but we can make it. Harker glanced at him. You good deconflicting with the helo? We'll push them, the JTAC said. It's training. They can wait. Elena felt something ease. Not victory, just the slotting of variables into the shape she'd seen in her head for days. Harker turned back to her. You realize locking to that TOT means if you're late, you're wrong. Yes, sir. No excuses about sun was bright or JTAC was busy. Yes, sir. He stared a second longer, looking for flex. She gave him none. This was the cost of owning the profile. You also owned the mistake. Fine, he said. TOT 143730. Attack axis 280-310. 1 pass preferred. JTAC will read final restrictions. You will read them back. If village is hot, I wave, she finished. Yes, sir. Parrish rocked in his chair. Bold for a first go. Bold would be ignoring ROE, she said. This is prepared. Harker flicked a pen toward her sim sheet at last, skimmed it. Your burst is short. It has to be, sir, she said. Long burst raises the chance of frags in the soft skins and gives APS more to eat. 2 seconds is enough if I'm in. She didn't add, and I will be in. Let the tape say it. The JTAC liaison typed notes. Call sign will be Reaper 15 on the ground. Friendlies 800 south. I will say that twice. If you don't hear it, you do not shoot. Yes, she said. Harker pushed off the table. Last thing. You making this harder on yourself because you're trying to prove something? She met his eyes. This was the part that could get loud, defensive, gendered. She refused to let it. I'm making it accurate, sir. His mouth twitched, almost a smile, but not quite. Fly it accurate, then. The meeting broke. No applause, no fist bumps. Parrish muttered, Hope the sun cooperates for you, Anvil. It will, she said, gathering her papers. I asked nicely. Out in the corridor, away from their eyes, she let herself exhale. 30 seconds. That was all. But holding that 30 meant tomorrow, when the APS bloomed and the target tried to move, she wouldn't have to wonder whether it was her timing or someone else's compromise. Quiet fortitude, she thought, is defending a number on a sheet of paper like it's your life. The ramp shimmered in the early afternoon heat, the kind that made the desert look like it was breathing. Captain Semilina Anvil Navarro walked out with her helmet bag and checklist tucked under her arm, eyes already on the squat, brutal shape of her A-10. The crew chief, SRA Donnelly, was waiting under the wing, sleeves rolled, headset around his neck. Ma'am, he called. Hogs ready. 909's flying good today. Let's keep it that way, she said. Up close, the aircraft's paint was tired but proud, scuffed in all the right places. She ran her hand under the intake lip like a ritual, then started her walk around. Tires, gear doors, panels, pylons, no drama, no loose safety pins. This was where you earned the right to fly a hard profile, in the boring, methodical circle on hot concrete. Donnelly tracked with her. Heard you're on the APS run. News travels. Whole line guys are watching the feed, he said, grinning. No pressure. She only raised an eyebrow. Then let's not give them a maintenance abort to watch. Climb, strap, click. The cockpit wrapped around her like a familiar argument. All business, no comfort. She settled the mask, tightened the lap belt, set her kneeboard where she could see the TOT she'd bled for. 143730, battery on, APU whine, engine start. The jet came alive in layers, fans, generators, screens, and with life came the one thing she did not want. Master caution, a soft, disapproving chime, a yellow eye lit on the panel. Her throat went dry. Not today, she scanned. The CDU flashed a minor advisory, environmental system discrepancy, not flight critical. The kind of thing that, on a lazy training day, you could use as an excuse to taxi back and let maintenance poke at it. Anvil crew, Donnelly's voice came through the intercom. You seeing that? Yeah, she said. Stand by. She flipped through the checklist with quick, precise fingers. Not wide-eyed, not flustered, just business, environmental, reset, monitor. The message cleared, then blinked back, weaker. She weighed it. If she taxied back, the story on the line would be APS run scrubbed, jet issue. That would be nobody's fault, and everybody would remember who'd been in the seat. If she fixed it in place, reported it clean, she kept the slot and the whole point of the last 72 hours. She keyed ground. Davis-Monthan ground, Vengeful 2, minor ECS advisory, system reset in progress, no impact to flight, request taxi. There was a pause. She could picture ground looking at the board, checking if the evaluator had said anything. Then, Vengeful 2, taxi runway 12, follow green toe to Alpha. Taxi 12, Vengeful 2. She looked down at Donnelly, gave him a thumbs up. He grinned, slapped the fuselage. The hog rolled, heavy and sure, tires thumping over seams. Heat waves danced over the wings. As she taxied, her RWR test chirped, radios sang with base traffic. Viper 1, her flight lead, was already ahead, turning toward the hold. Vengeful 2, this is Viper 1, status? He asked. Minor advisory, reset and stable, she said. I am green. Copy green. Let's not make Harker nervous. Wouldn't dream of it. On the run-up, the advisory stayed quiet. She watched it for a full 10 seconds longer than needed. This was the part no one would see on the footage. The part where she chose not to abort. The part where a female pilot didn't hand the narrative an easy punchline. Tower cleared them. Viper flight, wind 140 at 12, cleared for takeoff runway 12, fly heading 270. Viper 1, lead said. Vengeful 2, she echoed. Throttle forward, engines roared. The hog gathered speed with patient momentum, like a brawler getting off a bar stool. Nose wheel light. Lift. They climbed into the hot, thin air. Tucson slid under, beige and bright. The desert opened west. At 3,000, the advisory pinged again, faint, petulant. She checked parameters. Everything was in the green. Viper 1, Vengeful 2, she said. ECS advisory persists. Non-flight critical, monitoring. Vengeful 2, Viper 1 copies. If it degrades, you RTB. We can't have you distracted on the run. I won't be distracted, she said before she could stop herself. A beat, then lead, dry. You will if I tell you to. Copy, she said, reining it in. I'll call if it changes. The desert ahead was haze and empty space. Her HUD showed her exactly on schedule for the IP. The TOT sat on her kneeboard like a promise. Quiet fortitude, she thought, is fixing your own problems so no one can say the problem was you. The range came up out of the desert like a faded map she already knew. Marked lanes, burned patches, target hulks. From 10,000 feet the heat shimmer blurred edges, but the shapes were where Intel said they would be. Capt. Elena Anvil Navarro eased the hog to her pre-briefed heading, checked the time, 14:35, and toggled over to the JTAC Freck. Reaper 1-5, this is Vengeful 2, 2 A-10s 10 miles west, Angels 1-0, holding for talk on, abort code Eagle. Static, then a voice that sounded like it had dust in it. Fast, clipped, busy. Vengeful 2, Reaper 1-5, copy 2 A-10s. We are troops in contact training scenario. Friendlies to the south of armored element, 800 meters. Say ordnance. She could hear other air on his net in the background, plus what sounded like a helicopter pilot asking about ingress. He was juggling, which meant she had to make this effortless. Reaper 1-5, Vengeful 2, guns only, simulating single-pass anti-armor, APS-capable target. There was a half laugh in his reply. Roger that, ma'am. You got the hard one. She ignored the ma'am. Ready to copy target. Copy. Target is single MBT, northernmost vehicle in a 3-vehicle group. Oriented east, hull down behind low berm, grid as follows. As he read, she let the words paint over what she saw in the TGP. 3 signatures, 1 hotter, 1 with more mass, 1 at the top of the group. That was hers. She read it back. Exact. Target is single MBT, northernmost in 3-vehicle group. Oriented east, hull down, vicinity grid. She repeated the numbers, cadence even. Friendlies 800 south. Solid copy, the JTAC said. Be advised, village mock-up to your east at 800. You will not fire through the village. You will not long burst. Confirm. Vengeful 2 confirms no long burst, no fire through village. 1 short burst on cleared hot. Her RWR gave a dry little chirp, the range simulating a ground radar. She ignored it. Focus stayed on the voice. Situation update, Reaper 1-5 went on, thinner breath now, like he was moving. Armored element is attempting to reposition north. We want that stopped. You will have 1 clean look before smoke. You are number 1. Your wingman is number 2. If you can't PID, you wave. There it was. The sentence she'd been arguing with all day. Reaper 1-5, Vengeful 2, copy wave if no PID. Good. Taut 3730, still good? She glanced at the kneeboard and felt a small, fierce satisfaction. Affirm, 3730. Perfect. He switched tone, more formal. He was recording this then. Type 2 control, 1 target, request engagement. She ran the mental checklist like beads. Aircraft, ordnance, target location, mark, friendlies, egress, clean. Reaper 1-5, Vengeful 2, ready for remarks, restrictions. Remarks. Approach from west to east, stay north of friendlies, keep your brake north. Collateral concerns, village mock-up to east. Restrictions. Single pass, 1 2-second burst. No re-attack unless directed. No re-attack unless directed. She wrote it anyway, even though she intended to ask for it if BDA was muddy. Vengeful 2 copies all. Silence for a beat as he deconflicted something else. A helicopter pilot apologized for stepping on the net. JTAC waved him off, came back to her. Vengeful 2, Reaper 1-5, you are cleared hot. Just like that. The door opened. No lecture about take it easy. No, we'll start you on the easy targets. Because she'd given him nothing to doubt. Her readback was clean, her timing matched, her voice didn't wobble. Below, a thin puff started to crawl from the armored element. Simulated smoke, but a reminder the window would close. She keyed her lead. Viper 1, Vengeful 2, cleared hot, APS lane, I'm in. Vengeful 2, Viper 1, copy you're in. Make it pretty. She smiled, but the kind that didn't reach her eyes. Pretty was for cameras. She was here for accurate. She rolled her shoulders once, loosening the tension in her neck, and pushed the hog toward the IP. Quiet fortitude, she thought, is sounding so normal on the radio that nobody remembers you had to fight to be here. The IP slid behind her left shoulder. The world narrowed to run in HUD symbology, and the green insistent numbers marching toward 1437-30. Sparos Elena Anvil Navarro dipped the hog's nose, letting the desert swell up to meet her. Heat shimmer thickened. The target area turned into a mirage of tan and white. Vengeful 2, armor element just deployed smoke, APS active. You've got one run before they scatter. Say intentions. Reaper 1-5's voice matched the moment from her own memory. This was the line she'd heard in her head all morning. One pass, guns, she said. Negative Anvil, Viper 1 broke in, exact as before. APS will eat a lazy run, make it textbook. It fused with the earlier moment, past and present locking. This time it wasn't a dramatic teaser. This was the real tape. She rolled in. The hog obeyed, heavy but loyal, nose cutting through glare. The berm, the trio of vehicles, the smoke beginning to ooze, all of it rushed up the glass. Her TGP confirmed the northernmost MBT. Turret had already begun to slew, like the tank felt her. Altitude unwound. 6,000, 5,000. She checked the village off her right, a smudge of structures she was not going to hose. Friendlies to the south, invisible from here, but as real as any target. ROE sat in the back of her skull. One short burst, no fire through village, wave if no PID. She still had PID, barely. Reaper 1-5, Vengeful 2 and hot west to east, she called, because comms on the tape had to be clean. Vengeful 2, Reaper, continue. Friendlies 800 south. She let the jet sink into the run. The Pipper floated just above the tank. Crosswind tried to nudge her east. She preempted it with the same correction from dry. The smoke billowed thicker, the APS's little theater trying to blind the sky. 4,000. A hard white bloom flashed around the tank, APS triggering. In sim it had been a pretty effect. Here it was hostile, sudden, audacious. It said, I know you're coming. Time stretched. This was the part Rios had warned her about. This was where reasonable people waited, reassessed, came back for a second pass. She didn't have a second pass. She rode through the momentary blindness, trusting the geometry she'd protected in the brief. The nose came that fraction more down, tightening the angle, putting her into the window just after the APS had spent itself. 3,000. Anvil, if you don't... Viper 1 started. She squeezed. The GAU-8 spoke. That ancient, low chainsaw roar you felt in your bones more than heard. The jet shuddered with the recoil. Tracers stitched a bright, brutal line through the thinning smoke toward where the tank had been a heartbeat ago. 2 seconds. Not 3. Not just to be sure. Exactly what she'd told Harker she'd do. Through the smoke she caught flickers, sparks off armor, dust kicking, the side vehicles jolting like startled animals. The MBT rocked, hard. A panel or stowage on its flank tore. The berm chewed up around it. RWR chirped again, insistent. The world wanted her gone. She pulled, smooth but urgent, breaking north just as JTAC had told her. Village stayed protected on her right. Friendlies stayed safe to her left. She let the hog climb back into safer air, breath loud in her mask. Reaper 1-5, Vengeful 2, off dry, correction, off attack, north, she said, catching herself. Don't call it dry, own it. There was a half second of radio clutter, someone else on the net, Viper 1 calling visual, a helo querying ingress. Then the JTAC came back, breathless. Vengeful 2, Reaper 1-5, good hits. Standby BDA, tank is... A beat, other voices in his space. Tank is mobility kill. Turret slaved. Maybe catastrophic. Still assessing. Maybe. The word slammed harder than the G's. She wanted catastrophic kill, confirmed. She wanted textbook, do not change. Instead, she got maybe. Viper 1 slid in on the frick. Nice work, Anvil. APS triggered. You punched through. Request reattack if BDA not clear, she said immediately, not letting the window close. Stand by, JTAC said. Armor's trying to move, smoke is building, friendlies are shifting. Up here, the desert looked calm, the run already a line on her HUD. Down there, the target was half hidden in its own defenses. On the tape, it was going to look messy. APS flash, smoke, her tracers punching in. Not the clean hero shot. But it would also show something else. That an A-10, flown to the brief, hit through APS. If she could finish it, the argument was over. Quiet fortitude, she thought, is asking for the second pass even while everyone's still clapping for the first. Climbing back through 4,000, the hog steadied and the desert widened again, innocent. Captain. Elena Anvil. Navarro rolled wings level, breathing hard into the mask. Her forearms still buzzed from the GAU-8's recoil. Below, the smoke she'd punched turned into a dirty white column that hid everything she wanted to see. Reaper 1-5, Vengeful 2, say BDA, she said, voice clipped, professional. On the ground, the JTAC wrestled with chaos. She could hear it in the background. Another controller, a rotor wash thrum, someone cursing at the dust. Vengeful 2, Reaper 1-5, standby, long smoke obscuring. Armor is... A pause. Armor is halted. Turret is not tracking. I have fluid leaking. Possible catastrophic. Repeat. Possible catastrophic. Possible. Her jaw locked. She had flown it exactly. Timing, angle, burst length. She had taken the risk Rios had said to spread over 2 passes, and the tape, right now, said possible. Reaper 1-5, Vengeful 2, request reattack to confirm kill, she said at once. Before JTAC could answer, Viper 1 cut in, cautious. Vengeful 2, hold. You're off target. You've demonstrated effect. Let's not burn gas on a dead tank. It's not confirmed dead, she said. Mobility kill is not the same as catastrophic for this eval. There was a small silence, the kind where everyone on frequency realized she was talking about more than target effects. She was talking about the syllabus, about the thing Harker wanted to brief to higher. On the ground, the JTAC came back, winded. Vengeful 2, from my POV it's good enough for KS training. Armor is no longer maneuvering on friendlies. Copy for Cass, she said. Negative for validation. She hadn't meant to say the last word out loud. It slipped out, sharper than planned. Viper 1 heard it. You trying to write doctrine on the radio, Anvil? She forced air out slowly, reining it back. Negative, Viper. I am saying our objective per brief was to demonstrate first-pass lethality on APS-equipped armor. Current BDA is ambiguous. Reattack will clarify. There. Framed. Not ego. Not, I want to shoot again. Mission clarity. JTAC exhaled on mic, a huff of dust. I'm not going to stop you, Vengeful 2, but smoke is getting worse. You come back in, you may not PID. Village still east, friendlies still south. Understood. Above, sun glared off the canopy. Her kneeboard time ticked past 37:30. She was now in the part of the plan where fuel and range management started to matter. If she delayed too long, someone up the chain could say, "We don't have time for your perfectionism." She keyed the flight. Viper 1, Vengeful 2, recommending short surgical reattack while APS is saturated and target is static. This supports the training objective. There was a beat. She pictured Viper 1 frowning, doing math, imagining Harker's face if this went sideways. Vengeful 2, Viper 1, range visibility from your cockpit? Smoke plume, but I can still see target centroid through TGP. If I adjust lines slightly north, I can avoid the worst of it. JTAC, Viper 1, the lead said, now looping the controller in. Can you support one more A-10 attack, short burst, same axis? JTAC hesitated. She could hear him thinking. Friendlies, smoke, cameras. Then, affirm, one more. Same ROE. You must confirm target. You must keep the village clean. Copy, Viper 1 said. Then to her, all right, Anvil, you get one more look. Make it fast. Make it obvious. Relief came, but in a hard-edged way, not soft. She'd bought the chance. Now she had to pay for it. Wilco, she said. As she turned back toward the IP, the ECS advisory blinked again. Petty, background. She ignored it. Bigger fight. Below, the tank was still in that ugly in-between state, not advancing, not burning, hidden like it was ashamed. If this was the final tape, the talkers in Squadron would say, APS worked, not Navarro worked. Quiet fortitude, she thought, is arguing for clarity even when good enough would protect you. The second turn back toward the IP felt heavier, not because the hog cared, but because the decision space had shrunk. Captain Elena Anvil Navarro watched the smoke column thicken over the target area, dirty, wind-pushed, trying to erase the proof she'd just carved into the desert. Fuel numbers looked fine, but not infinite. She could hear another flight checking in on a different range frequency. Time on the block was ticking. Vengeful 2, Viper 1, her lead said, voice flatter now, command mode. We've demonstrated effect. We can take the win. She knew that tone. Let's not make this harder. Viper 1, Vengeful 2, she answered, just as flat. Current BDA is possible catastrophic. That does not meet objective for APS validation. Request reattack, 2-second burst, adjusted line to avoid smoke. A pause. She pictured him glancing toward wherever Harker was. Range tower, ops van, some shaded spot with feeds running. She imagined Harker's unimpressed stare. Navarro can't leave well enough alone. Anvil, Viper 1 said. You start making a habit of reattacks on APS targets. You increase exposure. APS could still have residual capacity. You're going to be lower, slower, smokier. Negative on habit, she said. This is specific to today's training objective. Training objective was first pass preferred, he reminded her. And we got first pass probable, she countered. Not first pass undeniable, sir. There was a rustle on the fruke. Someone else coming online, probably range or ops. Then another voice, older, dry. Harker's. Vengeful 2, this is range control OPS. We have you on feed. First pass was within parameters. Why do you need second? He was making her say it in front of everyone. She didn't flinch. Range ops, Vengeful 2, APS deployment and follow-on smoke produced ambiguous BDA. This profile is being considered for syllabus inclusion. Ambiguity will weaken it. A short, controlled second pass, while APS is still saturated, will produce the footage you need. Silence. She knew she'd said the magic word. Footage. Ops came back, slower. You're concerned with the tape. Concerned with the syllabus, sir, she corrected. But the tape is how you'll brief it. That was the truth. None of them would be in the room when a major somewhere played this to argue the hog was still relevant. The only thing that room would have was the video, the audio, the timing. Viper 1 exhaled audibly. Range ops, Viper 1, I can supervise one short reattack, same axis, no expansion. If she can't PID, she waves. We'll keep it tight. JTAC chimed in, dusty but steady. Reaper 1-5 concurs. I still have friendlies 800 south. I still have the village east. I can mark by talk on only. If she doesn't like it, I want her to wave. Harker's voice again, deciding. All right. Vengeful 2, you are cleared to conduct 1, repeat 1, follow-up attack under same ROE. You will not extend time on station. You will call in and off. You will not chase BDA and smoke. Yes, sir, she said immediately. 1 re-attack, same ROE, no chase. That was the irreversible part. Once she'd said yes, there was no pretending later that she'd been forced. She had asked for this. If she misjudged the smoke, if she hosed the village, if she even sounded unsure on the radio, it would all loop back to this moment of insistence. Viper 1 came back to her, a shade warmer. Okay, Anvil, you got what you wanted. This one's on you. Make it surgical. Wilco. She dropped her shoulders once, loosening the creeping tension at the base of her neck. Down below, the target area flickered in TGP, tank no longer moving, haloed by its own attempt to survive. APS had shown its trick. It was in that vulnerable period now, the exact window she'd lectured the Simtech about. Her ECS advisory blinked, almost sulky. She ignored it. She had bigger things to fix. She rolled back to heading. Reaper 1-5, Vengeful 2, setting up re-attack, west to east, offset north for visibility. Vengeful 2, Reaper, cleared hot, same restrictions. Cleared hot. Again. Earning it twice was harder than earning it once. Quiet fortitude, she thought, is asking again. Politely, professionally, until the door opens. She was already lower than she liked when she turned back in. The desert was brighter, somehow harsher, late afternoon glare flattening everything. Captain Elena Anvil Navarro tightened her harness, rolled to her attack heading, and let the hog descend into the haze a second time. This run was not about courage. The first had taken that. This was about consistency. Below, the smoke from the first engagement had drifted northward just enough to smudge the tank's outline. It sat there, half-wreathed, like a boxer hunched behind his gloves. She could see the 2 support vehicles crabbed away, not fleeing, but definitely not eager to be center stage again. Vengeful 2, Reaper 1-5, be advised smoke is drifting north. Your old line is ugly, the JTAC warned. Copy, adjusting line north, she said. Her thumb nudged the castle switch. TGP slewing to keep the MBT at center. She drew a mental triangle. Friendlies south, village east, smoke north. Her gap was a slit. She took it. The hog knifed in, shallower than the first time, just enough to hold sight picture. Crosswind tugged, but she'd already preloaded the correction. Her HUD symbology stayed calm, green. RWR chirped distantly, range background. Vengeful 2, Viper 1, her lead said, tone a warning and a blessing. Short and sweet. Affirm, 2 seconds. 2800, 2500. The tank's hull glinted through the thinning edge of smoke. There, exact, the upper plate, the turret that had stopped tracking. The APS did not flash this time. It had already spent itself, just like she'd told Ops it would. This was the vulnerable window she'd argued for. Good. She let the nose walk in, no extra flourish, no look at me, just the line. Vengeful 2 in hot, she called, because the debrief would demand it. Vengeful 2, cleared hot, JTAC came back immediately, trusting her now. Same restrictions. She exhaled once, slow, and squeezed. The GAU-8's roar filled the cockpit again, but shorter, tighter. A disciplined punch instead of a brawl. Tracers reached, bright against the dusty air, and this time there was no APS flower to spoil the view. Impacts walked right into the MBT's upper structure, chewing armor, throwing dirt and pieces of berm into the air. The tank lurched, then sagged in a way that looked final even from her angle. 2 seconds. off. She pulled, hard north, keeping the village out of her spray arc, wings banking wide over sunlit dirt. The hog responded without complaint. Her breath was loud, quick, but under control. "Reaper 1-5, Vengeful 2, off, north," she reported. J-Tac didn't make her wait this time. His voice came back charged with the satisfaction of a clean picture. "Vengeful 2, Reaper 1-5, that's it. Tank is done. No movement, no turret, heat rise dropping. That's a kill. Good effect on target." There, the word she'd chased. Kill. Viper 1 cut in, half proud, half keeping her humble. "Nice work, Anvil. That's how you do it." She let the compliment pass without grabbing it. Vengeful 2 copies good effect. Up above, Range Ops added the bureaucratic stamp. Vengeful 2, Range Ops, attack recorded, BDA clear. We have sufficient footage. We have sufficient footage. Not you were amazing. Not you saved the hog. But the sentence she actually wanted, the one that meant her insistence hadn't been ego. She climbed back to the hold, letting the desert drop away. Her ECS advisory stayed quiet now, as if the jet too was satisfied. Inside the cockpit, the emotion didn't explode. It thickened, a heavy, quiet relief at the base of her throat. 72 hours of sim, dry runs, defending a TOT, refusing to swap lanes, and now it was all boiling down to a line of green text on some range computer that said, "Target, MBT, APS. Status, destroyed. Weapon, JU-8, pass, 2, pilot, Navarro. Quiet fortitude," she thought, is making the second time look boring. The debrief room was cool, dim, full of fan noise and the faint smell of old coffee. On the wall, the range feed already waited, frozen on a dusty frame of her hog rolling in through glare. Capped Elena Anvil Navarro sat straight, helmet bag by her boots, flight suit unzipped to mid-chest, not slouching even though the chair invited it. Lieutenant Colonel Harker came in with a tablet under his arm, expression as neutral as briefing day. The J-TAC liaison followed, still dusty, still keyed up. Parrish slid in last, curious more than anything. Someone dimmed the lights. "Okay," Harker said. "APS lane. We'll run it full, then we'll talk." The video played. Pass 1. Her nose coming down, APS blooming, smoke thickening. The GAU-8's audio a low, satisfying thunder through the room speakers. Even on screen, you could see how hard it was to see. The tank rocked, vanished in dust. Harker paused. "APS deployment as advertised. You stayed online. Burst was clean." He tapped the timestamp. 1.9 seconds. "You said 2. 2 in sim," she said. "I cut when smoke came up." He nodded, neither approving nor disapproving. "That was prudent." He hit play. Pass 2. Tighter, offset north, no APS flare. Her tracers walking right into the MBT. The J-TAC on the audio track practically smiled when he said, "That's it." Harker let that line hang in the dark for a breath, then stopped the video. "Range," he said, looking at his tablet. "Confirms catastrophic. J-TAC confirms. Thermal camera confirms. So, target destroyed." He said it like he was reading a weather report. Elena kept her face still. Inside, something in her chest loosened. Not triumph, more like the click of a bolt sliding home. Parrish, from the side, said, "That's a nice second pass." Harker shot him a look. "We don't compliment second passes." That stung more than it should have. She'd earned that second pass. But he was right from his angle. The syllabus wanted first pass lethality. Everything after was correction. He turned back to her. "You insisted on the re-attack." "Yes, sir." "Why?" She could have said, "Because I wanted to win." Instead, she said what she'd framed on the radio. Because ambiguous BDA would weaken the profile if it's pushed to training. I had a window while APS was saturated. It was the lowest risk moment to clarify. He studied her a second. That's the correct answer. Not good job. Not well flown. The correct answer. The JTAC liaison chimed in. From the ground, second pass was cleaner. First one, I had to fight the smoke. Exactly, Harker said. Which is why in the future we'll either stagger smoke or we'll condition pilots to offset on first pass. Your second pass gives us footage for that. There it was. Gives us footage. The run was now material. Content. Trainable, repeatable. No one in this room was going to tell her she'd just made the A-10 look good in 2025. They were going to tell her she'd made the program look good. He tapped his tablet again. Comms were clean. You read back restrictions without being asked twice. You called off correctly. Flight lead control, acceptable. JTAC deconfliction, acceptable. ECS advisory, non-flight critical, she said. I reported and monitored. Good, don't ever hide them. I didn't, sir. He gave a small, tight nod, the kind evaluators gave when a box was checked. Any issues with airframe handling on high-angle entry? No, sir. Crosswind was manageable. Dry run helped. Then here's the bottom line. He set the tablet down. Pilot executed to standard. Tactics effective against simulated APS-equipped MBT. Recommend inclusion of Pass 2 in training package as smoke-obscured re-attack. That was it. That was the sentence that would travel. Not Captain Navarro flew brilliantly, just pilot executed to standard. For a heartbeat, something hot climbed her throat. Not anger, not even disappointment. Just the ache of someone who had poured everything into 72 hours and was now being filed as standard. She swallowed it. Understood, sir, she said. Harker glanced at her, maybe catching the microflare. Don't make that face. To standard on the hardest lane is not an insult. I know, she said. I just wanted it unambiguous. It is now, he said, because you asked for the second pass. He didn't add, and because you flew it right. He didn't have to. It was there in the video. He stood. Range will push the clip to training. You'll get a copy for your records. She nodded. Yes, sir. Parrish, as they filed out, murmured, Told you it was a career-killer lane. She looked at him, calm. Looks pretty alive to me. He grinned despite himself. Yeah, guess so. When they left her alone in the dim room, the freeze frame of her hog still on the wall, she let her shoulders drop for the first time that day. No applause, no handshake photos, just a silent jet on a screen and a line in a report. Quiet fortitude, she thought, is letting the report take the credit. 3 weeks later, the desert heat hadn't changed, but the context had. Captain Elena Anvil Navarro sat in a smaller classroom off the squadron building, a place where they ran upgrade briefs for fresh A-10 pilots. White walls, plastic chairs, faint smell of dry erase and floor polish. She was early, habit. She had a coffee in a paper cup and a stack of notes she didn't really need. 4 younger pilots filed in, talking about weekends, TDYs, one of them complaining about how the GAU cam always made him look fat on tape. None of them had been on the range the day she flew APS. For them, that lane was already just a syllabus bullet. The training officer, not Harker, just a captain with instructor wings, plugged in a laptop and threw a video onto the screen. Okay, he said, casual. This is the APS validation run from earlier this month. You've probably heard about it. Elena's spine straightened a fraction. She didn't move otherwise. On screen, the desert came up, washed out and familiar. The room filled with the low rumble of an A-10 rolling in. The training officer froze it to draw a circle around the smoke plume. "So," he said, "APS here pops right when the aircraft is in the dive. This is why you don't try to be a hero with a long burst. Short, disciplined, timed to the recovery of the APS. This pilot does it right." This pilot. He hit play. Her first pass roared through the speakers, a little compressed by the recording but still mean. Smoke, dust, the tank rocking. He stopped again. "BDA was unclear," he said. Instead of assuming success, aircraft requested and was granted a very short, very clean re-attack, while APS was still saturated. That's doctrine-minded flying. That's what we want. One of the new guys raised a hand. "Sir, was that at Nellis or here?" "Here," the instructor said. "Range west." "Who flew it?" another asked. The instructor shrugged in an offhand way. "One of ours. Not Navarro, not Anvil, just one of ours." Elena watched the second pass roll, her second pass. Offset north. Tracers perfect. The JTAC's voice came through. "That's it." The room murmured, impressed. "See?" the instructor said. "Short and sweet. No drama. Village stayed clean. Friendlies stayed safe. That's the standard now. So when you get the APS lane, don't tell me impossible. We've done it." He moved on. Just like that. He opened a slide about pattern deconfliction and fuel planning, as if he hadn't just played the thing she'd bled her pride into. The clip kept looping in the corner, muted. "No." One turned around to say, "Was that you, ma'am?" She didn't tell them. After the brief, when the room emptied, she stayed. The instructor started closing windows. He noticed her. "Oh, you needed something, Navarro?" She nodded toward the frozen frame on the screen. The hog, nose low over a dusty target. "Keep using that one." He blinked, then smiled in recognition. "Right, that was you." "Doesn't have to say so," she said. "Just don't replace it with a sloppier run." He huffed a laugh. "No danger there. Ops likes that one. Range likes that one. It makes the jet look good." Good. That was what mattered. Outside, the afternoon glare hit her like always. On the ramp, another A-10 was taxiing. Another pilot inside, helmet on, probably thinking about some other set of numbers, some other enemy. The platform kept moving. People rotated. Tapes stayed. She walked toward her own jet. Helmet bag swinging. The stitched-on Navarro on her flight suit, as plain as ever. If some colonel in some other state watched the clip next month and said, "Good, the hog can still do it," he wouldn't know her name. That was fine. Quiet fortitude, she thought, is making sure the next woman who asks for the hard lane doesn't have to argue as long. She climbed the ladder, slid into the cockpit, and started another pre-flight. Night pulled over the base like someone dimmed the world to debrief level. The desert was finally quiet, just the distant roll of generators and the occasional hoot of a taxiing jet. Elena sat alone in the squadron ready room, lights low, the glow from a single monitor painting her flight suit in cold blue. On the screen, the range clip was paused on that second pass. Her hog angled in, smoke drifting, tracers a frozen arc of resolve. She let it sit there, not out of vanity, but because she wanted to look at it without everyone else's commentary layered on top. Stripped of voices, it was simple. A target that said, "You can't." A pilot that said, "Watch." A jet old enough to have been written off more than once, still ramming steel into armor because someone flew it like it was still 1983 and still 2025 at the same time. Her name wasn't on the frame. It didn't have to be. She thought about all the invisible parts that never made it into a 40-second training video. The first few seconds in the sim where she almost fired too long. The moment in the squad room when Parrish dangled an easier lane. Rios warning her not to fly for other people's opinions. Harker's flat voice saying, "We don't compliment second passes." None of that would travel. What would travel was the clean run, the crisp comms, the confirmation. The system would keep the proof and lose the person. And yet, somehow, that felt right. Real military courage almost never arrives with applause. It arrives with a line in a report and tomorrow's frag order. She leaned back, eyes on the paused jet, and let the day settle. The point had never been to be the woman who did it. The point was to make it available, to make sure that when some future pilot, maybe younger, maybe sharper, maybe not having to argue through 3 briefings to hold a TOT, stepped into the cockpit and got assigned the APS lane, there was a clip that said, "If you fly it right, it works." Not "it works for her," not "it works if the evaluator is in a good mood," but "it works." That was the kind of legacy that didn't show up in plaques. The real message, she realized, wasn't "a woman can do it too." That was too small, too reactive, and honestly beneath what she'd just done. The real message was quieter and harder. Excellence is not gendered, but it is documented. If you can get your excellence into the tape, into the syllabus, into the checklist, then the next person doesn't have to fight the culture. They just have to follow procedure. Quiet fortitude is choosing to do the hard, exacting thing even when the payoff will be anonymous. It's flying to standard on the hardest lane and letting the standard, not the storyteller, carry your name forward. It's accepting that some victories are best preserved as doctrine, not as applause. Outside, another A-10 lifted into the night, its engines rolling over the dark base. She watched it go with a small, tired, satisfied smile, knowing it was climbing into a sky slightly easier than the one she'd met that morning. Because her run existed now. Because the tape was clean. Because somewhere in a folder she'd never see. Next to a line that said, "Pilot executed to standard," the truth was tucked in between the pixels. It was hard, and she did it anyway.